What's up, people? How's it going, people? My name is Ryan Thomas. Welcome to the Thomas Takes Sports Podcast YouTube channel. Once again, I told you I would be on around 4:35-ish. Here I am. I'm very excited to bring you guys this show. This is going to be unlike anything I've done before. This is going to be a show in which I will be on YouTube talking concurrently with everybody and talking about particular sports topics somewhat in a row. Whether it's the NFL's new anthem policy, the Count Bisping's retirement. I'm going to dive into a lot of the biggest sports headlines throughout the last week or so. And there's a lot to cover. So let's get right down to it. I want to let it be known that I am proud to be an American. I just got off of celebrating Memorial Day, as did millions of other Americans throughout their day yesterday, paying tribute to the men that risked their lives for our everyday freedom, the real heroes, the real superheroes, the real people that should have movies made about them and be considered as legendary in their very own way, with what they do, with what they sacrifice for us, for this country. Those are the real heroes. We can all agree on that, right? Right. If you don't, I don't know who wouldn't agree to that. But anyway, just coming off celebrating Memorial Day. And prior to that, the National Football League instituted a new rule for the national anthem in which players have to stand for the anthem, and if they are not going to stand for the anthem, they then have to go to the locker room and be in the locker room, which I'm a little bit up in the air on that front. And what I mean by that is I'm not happy with that ruling at all. Me as an American, if I was in a sporting event, if I was in those shoes, if I was playing in a sports game and the national anthem comes on, I will put my hand over my heart, my right hand over my heart, and pay my respects to the flag, to what that represents. But along the way, this has gotten so misconstrued as to why Colin Kaepernick, why Eric Reed, why these many, many players decided to put together a peaceful protest to bring light to a situation that is a part of our each and everyday reality: police brutality, discrimination, racism. That is still a part of our each and everyday reality, whether we all want to admit it or not. I see things throughout this journey of this whole story with Colin Kaepernick that you really got to scratch your head and wonder. There's guys in the league now, rather than Colin Kaepernick, there's guys in the league now that very well should not be, or very well Colin Kaepernick should be in the league instead of them, and he is not. We all know the reason why he is not. He is not in the league due to the stance that he took, due to the kneeling during the national anthem. Do I think that that's right? Do I think that he should be in the NFL? 100%. I do think he should be in the NFL. Do I think it's right that he's not? No, I do not. Do I understand football? Yes, because I understand something that most NFL fans, most sports fanatics have not really generalized yet, that there are 32 people versus one. Let me say that again. There are 32 people against one. Those 32 being the 32 National Football League owners, all of which have extremely deep pockets and have found success way prior to them buying billion National Football League. There's a reason why they are in this position to buy these teams, because they were business savvy, because they were business coherent and able to buy these teams. They were put in that position business-wise because of the great decisions that they made as businessmen. They were able to make this move and buy these teams. I can speak on something close to me and in my area with Terry Pegula. The Bills were for sale. Ralph Wilson had passed. Terry Pegula wanted to swoop in and buy the team. He had the pockets to do so. The new Carolina Panthers owner, Jerry Richardson, had that controversy, that scandal. This guy swoops in, buys the team. These guys are already self-made. They are already self-success stories. And they do not want to take on the public relations headache that would be bringing in Colin Kaepernick. And no one can disagree with me on that it would be a headache for right reasons or for wrong reasons. There are two sides to this coin. The right reasons, people are saying, well, this is the flag. We should respect it. The flag symbolizes our patriots. This flag symbolizes our military. Then there's the other side of it, where if you asked a military member, what do you fight for? They would tell you that they fight for our freedom, which means freedom of speech, freedom of religion, for each and every one of us as Americans to wake up each and every morning and breathe in the fresh air, to go to the grocery store, to go get some gasoline in our cars, to go to a movie, to go to the mall. These men and women risk their lives so we can do that. Colin Kaepernick took it upon himself to say, I notice things in this country that are not right. I'm going to use my platform to bring awareness to this situation. And one of the only ways I think I can bring awareness to this situation with all eyes on me, with everyone watching, is when I'm on the field. But I'm not on the field. I'm not the starting quarterback. Blaine Gabbert was the then starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. So Colin Kaepernick took it upon himself in his biggest moment, at the best time possible, to kneel and say, hey, I can't stand for this current country that we live in. Things need to change. And people that disagree with the idea that things need to change, just that idea alone, are living in a fantasy land. Because we've fights, we've had police brutality, we've had a whole boatload of stories in which minorities are being treated unfairly, and Colin Kaepernick took a stance on that and knew deep down in taking that chance, he was risking his career. He was risking his future. He was in the last year of a deal with the San Francisco 49ers. They were not going to bring him back. They were not going to bring him back, especially after that. They were not going to bring him back. And that boils down to the point that these 32 NFL owners were not willing to take on this PR monster headache that is this situation. They don't want to answer for it. They don't want to answer to the questions. They don't want to stand up at a podium and explain to the media why they are signing this player. When last time I checked, this league is about winning, putting the best players on the field at all times. That's the job of a GM. That's the job of a coach. That's the job of an owner. If an owner isn't willing to do that, if a GM isn't willing to do that, if a head coach isn't willing to do that, they need to be fired from the NFL and never to return again. And last I checked, Colin Kaepernick's a lot better than a lot of the backups in the league. Eric Reed, the safety that kneeled with Colin Kaepernick, is a lot better. I meant to say Colin Kaepernick is a lot better than the backup quarterbacks in the NFL. Played in a Super Bowl, almost won a Super Bowl. Would the narrative be different had that game gone differently? If the San Francisco 49ers had won that game, would the narrative be different? Would we be singing a different tune? Would Colin Kaepernick be seen as a hero had he had that Super Bowl ring attached to that Super Bowl attached to his name, Super Bowl victory attached to his name? I don't know, but it's definitely worth a thought, because it seems like any player that wins a Super Bowl in the National Football League, whether they're the biggest moron jerk on the face of the earth, they are praised as if they are some of the best civilians in our society. And we all know that the majority of these National Football League players are not. They're not. They make mistakes. They're human beings just like me and you. Now we have this anthem policy that says, hey, if you are not going to stand for the anthem, stay in the locker room. Which oftentimes, time and time again, if one person says one thing in one event, in one situation, if they react one way in one situation, they are going to react that same way again and again and again. People are just cut from different cloths. Some people react to different situations the same exact way. And what I mean by that is Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner, has missed the boat on so many issues that I have been in real shock as to how and as to why Roger Goodell is still the commissioner of the National Football League. As a man, me being a man, I find it very, very tough to generalize that and say, well, he does a good job. I can't say he does a good job, because every real life situation that has been public in this league since he has taken over, whether it's this Colin Kaepernick situation, the Eric Reed, all the players that kneeled for the anthem, whether it's the Adrian Peterson situation where there was the switch hit to his kid, whether there's the Ray Rice situation, Roger Goodell has missed the boat on every one of these situations. And is he running for public office? Is he running to be the next president of the United States? Is he running to be a governor? Is he running to be a senator? Is he running to be a mayor? No. But his role is the commissioner of the National Football League. He runs the show. I hate New England just as much as anybody, X's and O's wise, competition wise. I would love to see New England falter. I would love to see New England fall apart. But nobody can look me in the face and tell me that Deflategate made sense. Nobody can do that, because it didn't. It didn't make sense. It was a witch hunt on Tom Brady and the Patriots. And I'm not saying that to stick up for the Patriots. It's just fact. Tom Brady had won X amount of Super Bowls prior to that. They were blowing the Colts out of the water throughout that entire game, so it didn't even matter if New England was doing that. And teams have been doing that for years. It's almost like letting the cat out of the bag that Santa Claus is not real to a 10-year-old boy. I hate to break it to you, Charlie, but Santa Claus is not real. NFL teams do cheat. That does happen. Roger Goodell, I will not stand for that. He will be suspended for 4 games. He will have this. The Ezekiel Elliott situation. Was he suspended? He was suspended. Then he wasn't suspended. Then he was. Just get your you-know-what together, Roger. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. And take a stance on something rather than just trying to save face for the NFL, because that's what this is. That's what this NFL anthem policy is. It's just trying to save face for the majority of the fans that tune in each and every Sunday, Monday, Thursday to your brand that you want to cater to. There's a lot of fans out there that were outraged by it. There's a lot of veterans out there that were outraged by it. I'm not saying that they are wrong for their opinion. What I am saying, though, is to take a permanent stance to make the NFL more vanilla than it already is. It's a mistake. You have to let the players have personality. You can't quiet the players. And the NFL's new anthem policy is their version of trying to shut the mouths of the NFL players. And guess what, Roger? It is never going to happen. I mentioned earlier, 32 versus 1. 32 NFL owners versus Colin Kaepernick. Well, Roger has, let's do the math. We have 53-man rosters. We have 32 NFL teams. We have 1,696 players in total in the National Football League against one. I'm sure if you asked every player, do you give a rat's you-know-what if a player stands for the anthem? Some would say they care. Some would say it bothers them. Most would not. I would say out of 10, if we pulled 10 NFL players and we asked them, do you care if a player kneels for the anthem, most of them would not care. They would not care. The ratings took a dip after Kaepernick made his stance, and others followed suit. Roger needs those numbers. Roger's got to have those numbers. Roger can't have any integrity. Roger can't propel the voice of the players. Roger has to shut these players up for his job. That's how he sees this. He sees this as his way of saving his own job. When in reality, you didn't handle the Ray Rice situation correctly. You suspended him for 2 games. You suspended Adrian Peterson for an entire season. You suspended Ezekiel Elliott. Then he fought it. Then he won. Then he lost. Then he won. What is going on? What is going on? This stuff happens every single year. And it's a mess. Put a structure together. If players are breaking the law, put a structure together that says, we're going to do things this way. If a player commits a domestic violence, is convicted of domestic violence, he's going to be suspended for 8 games. If a player has a DUI, he's going to be suspended for 8 games. Just set a precedent on how these players are to be punished. But if a player is expressing their freedom of speech, their right, you have to let them do that. Whether the ratings go down or not, you make plenty enough money. You got the draft every single year. And for the life of me, I didn't understand for years. For years, I didn't understand why Roger Goodell got booed so badly by NFL fans. Roger Goodell got booed so badly in Philly, in Radio City, in Dallas, and when there's 32 fan bases in one sitting, and he walks up to the podium and says the New England Patriots are on the clock. Meanwhile, he's going to war with Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, trying to go on his Tom Brady witch hunt. He got booed so loud. At the time, I felt sorry for him, but now I don't feel sorry for you, Roger. I don't feel sorry for you. This is a weak, spineless stance on something that could have been it could have been brushed over. They made it a bigger deal than it actually is. It's a big deal. I'm not saying that police brutality and the cause that Colin Kaepernick was trying to stand up against isn't a big deal. I'm saying for the NFL, they made this a bigger, quote-unquote, problem than it needed to be. Let the players have a voice in this league. Let the players represent their background. Let the players be pillars in society. What is wrong with that? For Roger Goodell, there's a lot wrong with that, and I do not understand it. So the first 20 minutes of the show, that's my take on Roger Goodell. Next 20 minutes of the show, I want to talk about the retirement of one Michael the Count Bisping. Now, I want to say, first and foremost, thank you to Michael Bisping for the career that he had had these last 15 years. Michael Bisping's always going to be remembered by MMA fans, myself included. I can honestly add my name to this list as a fighter that really brought the UK scene to the sport. Without Michael Bisping, we might not have seen a Dan Hardy. We might not have seen a Paul Daly. We might not have seen a Conor McGregor in the UFC. We might not have seen a Darren Till in the UFC if it wasn't for the success that Bisping had in the early years of his career, winning that season 3 of The Ultimate Fighter, which was a great season, by the way. One thing that I always think about when I think about Michael Bisping is he was that guy that was the agitator. He wanted to get under your skin. He wanted to talk. He wanted to talk, walk the walk, so to speak. And for a while, I couldn't stand him. I just thought he was a brash, annoying, immature British guy, which he was. He would self-admit that. But over time, and I can't remember this ever happening with any other fighter in my, fandom of my fanhood of the UFC, of mixed martial arts, but it happened with Bisping. I couldn't stand Michael Bisping. I wanted to see him lose. I wanted to see him get knocked out by Dan Henderson in the fashion that he got knocked out by Dan Henderson. But something changed. He became this sympathetic figure. And the reason why I say that is because he made this climb up to the middleweight ladder, got knocked down again, made the climb again, got knocked down again. And he became a fighter that just proved perseverance and hard work are real, that you can make the most of those opportunities if you persevere, if you push through, if you get back up again. Michael Bisping proved that time and time again. I can point to 3 separate instances where Bisping was a #1 contender and he lost those #1 contender fights and lost out on a title shot versus Anderson Silva. Let's go to the record here of Michael Bisping. I want to really dive into his career and give him the respect that he deserves on this day. Guy that's 39 years old, had been undefeated at light heavyweight from 04 to 07, moved to middleweight in 2008. 10 years as a UFC middleweight. 10 years as a top 10 UFC middleweight. And there was the middleweight title eliminator, July 11th, 2009, UFC 100 versus Dan Henderson. That was a fight that pitted an American versus the Brit. Ultimate Fighter coaches. A great season of The Ultimate Fighter, by the way. If you haven't tuned into it, you should. From 2009. He lost that fight, devastating fashion. Then he had to climb up the ladder, fight Dennis Kang, win. Fight Vanderlei Silva, lose. Dan Miller, win. Yoshihiro Akiyama, win. Jorge Rivera, win. Jason Miller, coming off of an Ultimate Fighter finale, coaches fight with that fight as well. He was on The Ultimate Fighter as a coach twice, on The Ultimate Fighter as a contestant, winning it in season 3. Then he fights the middleweight title eliminator versus Chael Sonnen. This was the right for Chael Sonnen to win this fight Anderson Silva again, or lose this fight. And this is Michael Bisping's time to shine. This is the fight that he'd always wanted with Anderson Silva, a fight that he would eventually get. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But this fight with Chael Sonnen and Michael Bisping was so close. This was a close fight. This was a fight that I really, really enjoyed because it came together very quickly. I think it was within 2 weeks' notice. Mark Munoz got hurt and things happened. or Damian Maya got hurt. No, I think it was Munoz. I can't remember. Something like that happened. And it forced Bisping and Sonnen to fight each other. And Bisping's hard-nosed, in-your-face, takes a punch to throw one style was very tough for the in-your-face grinder that is Chael Sonnen. So you could watch that fight 10 times and come up with 5 times where you think Chael wins. You'd come up with 5 times where you think Bisping wins. And you wouldn't be wrong. It's why it's tough being a judge in this sport, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But he loses to Chael, fights Brian Stann, wins a decision, fights Vitor Belfort and gets TKO'd, injures his eye, which was never the same, fights Alan Belcher, who then injured Alan Belcher's eye, and then he goes up against Tim Kennedy and loses that fight, very one-sided, puts on this devastating performance versus Kung Lee, which for my money is the best fight in his career. Then goes up against Luke Rockhold in what was considered to be a title eliminator. Not classified as a title eliminator, but in Sydney, Australia, the former Strikeforce middleweight champ versus the longtime UFC middleweight. A lot of bad blood between those two. That took place November 7th of 2014, and Luke Rockhold choked Bisping unconscious with one arm and brought him back up to his feet, and that was that. Bisping goes up against CB Dalloway, wins that fight, fights Talis Latis in a close fight, but a split decision victory for him in Scotland. Then he gets the fight with Anderson Silva. Finally, Anderson Silva, not the champ at that time, but this was the fight that Bisping always wanted no matter what. He wanted it as long, any which way he could get it, and he got it. He got it in London, England. For my money, he had a lot of great performances, a lot of legendary fights. But this Anderson Silva fight, which took place on UFC Fight Pass, was a fight that I really needed to watch. I go to YouTube, I watch it, and I'm actually sitting in my entertainment room upstairs, my game room upstairs with all the PlayStation, all that stuff. And I'm watching it on my TV up there, streaming it. And I just thought to myself, this Michael Bisping is acting like this is the fight of his life, and it's not for a title. He just wanted to beat Anderson Silva so badly. It was a very close fight. Bisping loses his mouthpiece. Anderson Silva throws this flying knee. The knee connects. Anderson thinks it's over. Bisping's down on the mat. The round ends, and the fight's not over, and Bisping has 2 more rounds to fight, being that happened in the third round. He wins the fight. Some people say, oh, the judges in London had his back. Maybe they're onto something there. But I did think Bisping controlled the pace of the fight outside of that round in which Anderson Silva dropped him. I did think Bisping won all the rounds. There were moments where Anderson Silva was doing his, shake and bake type stuff. We was trying to bait Bisping into getting caught, and it did not happen. Bisping showed real fortitude, real toughness mentally in there, and got that win. Then, to put it in perspective, I am in Florida at the time, and I see that Chris Weidman had gotten hurt. He was getting an immediate rematch, being that he had just lost his middleweight title to Luke Rockhold. Rockhold beats Bisping. He gets that opportunity to fight Weidman. He beats Weidman. Then they do an immediate rematch. Weidman gets hurt 2 weeks out of the bout, and Bisping raises his hand and says, I'll take the fight. It's long been storied that Rockhold decided to fight Bisping instead of Jacare, and Bisping didn't like that at all, and that motivated him to beat Luke Rockhold this time around, the second time around. Knocks him out in the first round, and it was one of the most memorable UFC fights ever. I get chills literally thinking about it still to this very minute. Watched it at the Buffalo Wild Wings, and I thought, man, he's hitting him. He's landing punches. He's not backing down. And he throws this looping left hook that is it was almost like a paw. Like he just, and Luke Rockhold was just rocked off that punch. And Bisping finished him off, and he's the UFC middleweight champ after 10 years of trying to get to that level. He finally made it. It was an incredible story. And then a fight that I wanted again was Dan Henderson, and that fight happened. I didn't think he won that fight. That's a fight that I could look at and say, I think those judges in Manchester had Bisping's back. But regardless, he's one of the best UFC fighters of all time. He got knocked down. He got back up again. The true measure of a man with perseverance, a man with heart, soul, desire, will, determination. Defended that belt against Dan Henderson, avenging a loss. I did think Henderson won that fight. But then he takes on George St.Pierre, and that was a fight that I really wanted. Although he didn't come out on the winning end of it, I was very happy that he actually put that fight together. That was his doing. And George, kind of hopped on board with it. I thought that was a great fight. Bisping had a lot of great moments in there. It would have been a real huge moment in his career had he got the W. And there were moments where it looked like he was going to get the W with the way he was able to land a lot of really solid punches and kicks in the second round, and really maintained good position from bottom, was able to scoot, get to his feet, and prior to that was able to land some really nice strikes from the bottom, opening up GSP and winning, in that second round for sure, taking a round from GSP, which is no easy task. Not many fighters have done that. And then he tries to do this OG gangster move where he takes this fight against Kelvin Gastelum 3 weeks later, a up-and-coming, surging middleweight. Anderson Silva was supposed to fight him, but he got popped for steroids. So just like Bisping had always done, he was against the guys that failed their USADA tests. He always was a guy that fought clean and said, I'm going to fight clean one last time, possibly. We'll see what happens. He got knocked out in the first round. I'm pretty sure it was the first round. Yeah, 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the fight, he got knocked out in Shanghai, China. I was rooting for Bisping, but I really thought that was a bad decision on his part. Regardless, one of the best UFC middleweights ever, one of the best UFC fighters ever, brought the sport to a new level. Without him, we might not have the European stars that we have currently with Till and McGregor, Dan Hardy along the way as well. Bisping really ushered in a new era in the sport that I think has lended itself to being a big part of the current UFC. I wish him the best. He turned me from a fan that didn't really like him to a fan that did, and that's really rare. Not many fighters in combat sports can I say, well, I didn't like him originally, now I do. I have all the respect in the world for the guy. I really do. I think he will age like a fine wine in terms of his UFC career. There's still some haters out there. There's still people that say, well, maybe he should have done this. Maybe he could have done that. At the end of the day, one night he was a champion. One night he went into the octagon not as the champion, and he left as the champion. It's all that counts. Did he defend his title against 46-year-old Dan Henderson? Yes, he did. Did he defend his title against the longtime welterweight champion? Yes, he did. So what? I can name those two things alone are something that he did that Conor McGregor hasn't done. He defended his titles. Sometimes we, as MMA fans, talk about, oh, he shouldn't be defending his title against that guy. He shouldn't be defending his title against that guy. Well, at least he is defending his damn title. He's not holding on to the belt, putting other fighters' careers at his mercy. He was out for a while. He had that knee issue. Then he fought GSP, lost that one, then wanted a quick turnaround against Gastelum. And after the Gastelum fight, he stated that he had some issues with his eyes. He had one bad eye from the Vitor Belfort fight that he fought with for 5-6 years, which is really remarkable. I mean, literally practically blind in one eye, and he fought for 4, 5, 6 years around there. I think it was 5, yeah. Hall of Famer. I mean, I'm assuming it'll be very, very soon that he's inducted in the UFC Hall of Fame. I would imagine, just due to what he has done in his career, he did a lot for the UFC. He is tied for first with the most wins all time with George St.Pierre. He fought in more UFC main events than anybody between pay-per-views, fight nights, whatever. I think there's something to be said for that. He was a main draw for the UFC for over a decade. That's incredible. So, Michael Bisping, we'll miss you, buddy. I've been a huge fan of his podcast as well. Believe you me, I'll continue to tune into it and really support him in each and every way. I would have really loved to have seen him fight Luke Rockhold a third time. I think he could have gotten the W too. Did it once, Rockhold did it once. I would have liked to have seen the rubber match. Would have really liked to have seen him fight Rashad Evans, being that was a drawback in the day. That was a really good fight. For those of you that are not tuned into that, you should. Does great work on his podcast. Does great work on UFC Tonight. He's a funny guy. Helped create a real movement in the UFC, not just a false narrative, a real movement in the UFC that is continued and will continue because of him. It starts with one. Always remember that. It starts with one. So that being said, I mentioned, we had 17 minutes on Bisping here. I mentioned that Bisping was a huge part of why the European scene in MMA is so big because of what he did for the UFC, being the first UK star. That's why the sport is so big in those areas. Darren Till is now the next generation star from Liverpool, and the UFC went to Liverpool as Till took on Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who was ranked as the #1 welterweight contender. But we all know how that works out in the UFC. The rankings don't mean jack bleep nothing. So Tyron Woodley's on ice. Rafael Dos Anjos is set to fight Colby Covington. Thompson gets offered this fight. He says, why the hell not? Fight this dude in his own backyard because I'm awesome. I fight for the fans. I want to entertain. And one of the things with this fight that I don't think many people are talking about is the fact that Wonderboy not only took this fight, which was a real risk, took this fight versus an up-and-coming guy that he really didn't have to fight. He took the fight against a guy he didn't have to fight, took the fight against him in this kid's hometown, took the fight against him with Darren Till missing weight, weighing in at 174 pounds and not being able to weigh more than 188 and weighing in at 187.3 asterisk at the time of weigh-ins, which I'm sure he had something to eat after he weighed in. So who knows how much he weighed in that bout? Maybe close to 195, 200 pounds. Meanwhile, Stephen Thompson weighed around 180. So Till outweighed Wonderboy by a good 20 to 30 pounds. That's a safe assessment. That's fair. And that needs to be said first and foremost. There's weight classes for a reason. Mackenzie Dern just missed weight by over 7 pounds. Fighting Amanda Cooper, it looked like two different fighters fighting each other in two different weight classes. There are weight classes for a reason. When I, believe it or not, was wrestling at 135 pounds, and I moved down to 126 pounds, my idiot of a wrestling coach put me in the wrong bracket at 135 when I had I had a 123 written on my arm, right on this arm. It said 123. He put me in the wrong bracket. I was wrestling against 135 pounders. Now, that was a Christmas tournament where we had 3-pound weight advantage for Christmas. So these kids that I was wrestling at 126, 29 pounds in my body at the time, far from it now, was wrestling against guys that were 140 or 143. And I won 2 matches off of that. But that's neither here nor there. It's not about me. I'm not making this a legendary story about myself, but that was pretty awesome. It was a good accomplishment on my end. But it just shows you that weight classes matter. They wouldn't exist if they didn't matter. There's a reason why they are there. You're not going to have a 125-pound fighter fight a 225-pound fighter, right? Come on. This isn't the Stone Age. This has become a sport over the last 10 to 15 years, whether people want to admit it or not. And that's one of the reasons why there's uniformed rules around this. So Till massively outweighed Wonderboy in this fight. There's no question about it. And for what Wonderboy fights like with his strengths, moving guys around, getting guys to move, he tried to maintain his movement to force Till to move that heavier set body around. But Till was very aggressive. And I think that caught Wonderboy off guard a little bit. I think that caught him off guard, being that he didn't expect it. He thought Till would be laid back. He thought he'd be able to, play catch with him a little bit, hand fight a little bit, kind of maintain that wide karate stance. He was unable to do that because Till was constantly in his face. Till was constantly moving forward. Till was forcing Wonderboy to have his back to the cage a lot of the fight. But I can't remember a time in a UFC fight where one fighter inflicted the pace of the fight, dictated the pace of the fight without landing much of anything and winning the fight, getting the judge's decision, unanimous decision. This was not normal. And this is a fight. You want to talk about Michael Bisping getting some love from the British judges and refs, whatever? Oh my God. This is a fight that if you go to MMAdecisions.com, it's a forum for MMA fans to put in their scorecards as a fight happens. It's live on pay-per-view, live on TV. You put in your score, 10-9 round 1, 10-9 round 2, yada, yada, yada. Put in your score, submit it. You can see around the world how other fans have scored this fight. And if I were to go to MMA Decisions right now, which I am going to, being that I'm on my laptop during this broadcast, during this live stream, Thompson versus Till, Collette scored at 48-47. Roberts scored at 49-46. Sutherland scored at 49-46. 49-46, people, means 4 rounds to 1 for Darren Till. My scorecard had Wonderboy winning this fight 48-47, winning the first 3 rounds and losing round 4 and 5. I thought Darren Till was not aggressively landing punches, not diligently, I should say, not diligently landing punches. Was he maintaining the pace of the fight? Yes, but I thought Wonderboy, the first 2 rounds especially, picked Till apart, essentially. Did he land the ultra-hard shots? No, he didn't. But he landed some good ones. Got some good ones in there. Ones that you could hear on the TV. So they were hard enough. Were they knockout shots? No, they were not. And I'm sure Wonderboy wishes that they were at this point. So you go to Till defeats Thompson unanimous. You click that fight. You see the MMA media, the majority, 19 out of 21 writers in the sport of mixed martial arts, myself included, scored the fight for Wonderboy Thompson 48-47. Some of which scored the fight 49-46 for Wonderboy. I couldn't do that. I did think it was 3 rounds to 2. I did think it was very close. But you have percentages like 88 and 94 and 78 for the first 3 rounds for Wonderboy. And then the only round that Till really won by a wide margin was the 5th, where he did drop Wonderboy. And I don't give a rat's you-know-what. Till dropped Wonderboy, but dropping a guy shouldn't win you a fight. It shouldn't win you a fight. And the way he acted after the fight, people said his post-fight press conference was legendary and it was great and everything like that. They loved it. I wasn't loving it. I thought that it was a little annoying, to be quite honest with you, because he missed weight, which he acknowledged, but he'd acknowledge it and then be like, let's go, anyone, anytime, I'll fight any of you. And it's like, okay, I get you're trying to be a tough guy. You just came off this big, impressive performance. In your eyes, you just got the decision. That's it. You didn't win the fight by the majority of the public. They would not agree with you winning that fight. If you asked all of Liverpool if he won the fight, they'd say he did. But if you asked everyone from around the planet if Darren Till won that fight, majority would say he did not. And there's proof in that. There's data in that. There's statistics in that. And I think they need to run it back. I know Wonderboy had the 2 fights with Woodley, but I would like to see that again. Maybe not immediately. But when you beat a guy and you missed weight and you beat him specifically on the sole fact that you outweighed him by a lot, you should not get a title shot. I think Wonderboy deserves a title shot more than Till at this current juncture. All right, everybody, I got to head out, actually. I will be back on a little bit to do the next part of the show. But for now, take care. See you later. Thanks for tuning in.